Welcome to Yelling at Birds. I'm Matt. You're you. I like that. Let's do this. A few days ago, I got to talk to Bryon Cherry, poet and songwriter out of Milwaukee. I met Bryon through Kelly Sexton, who I interviewed previously. Had a really good time talking to him. He talked about inspiration for his poetry, his life, some of his life philosophies, and gleaning a deeper meaning out of seemingly small moments and seemingly insignificant moments. So had a really good time talking to him. He has what I have. I'm sure he has more, but what I have, two collections of his: Funeral Journey and Ruins, Ruminations, and Rituals that are out now. He's working on some more, so I'm excited to see that. And you can check out his work at bryoncherry.com, his website. Of course, it's a website, it's a .com, but it's bryancherry.com. If you go to bryoncherry.com, you will go to the wrong place. And sometimes, due to being a natural introvert, when I start talking to people, occasionally I get sweaty. And this was one of those times. So that was kind of fun. It worked itself out. But it was distracting. Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you very much for being here, and enjoy the interview. Where's my hat? I almost forgot. Today's episode is brought to you by Sonny's Pizzeria. Go to sonnyspizzeria.com to check out their menu. They just came out with, I believe, five new pies. That's what you call them. Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Sonny's Pizzeria. They're still doing curbside takeout, curbside carryout, just over concern for their guests and their staff. But awesome pizza, great people. And if you follow them on Facebook, I'm pretty sure there's a good chance that you can see what the Pizza Boys are up to. I'm going to put their number right there. Call them today, check them out, go on Facebook, check them out, stalk them, never leave them alone. Sonny's Pizzeria. And that's it. Bye. Glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I like the glasses.
Oh, thank you.
Any story behind those?
Addicted to sunglasses, so.
What's that?
Kind of addicted to sunglasses, so.
Nice. Any story behind those ones?
These I get, I believe, in New York City, actually. I was out there for a reading, actually, and just saw these, and I was like, yeah, they're coming home with me, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You got the hat, too?
Yeah.
Nice. All right, well, we should just BS for a little bit, and that ends up being the beginning of the interview.
Okay.
Usually. Well, I appreciate you being here with me. Happy that Kelly, introduced me to you and your work.
Yeah.
So she was nice enough after our interview to she was pretty much couldn't stop talking about like you and your work, and she's excited. I think you just runs, Ruminations, and Rituals.
Yep.
Was I think what you just put out.
Yep, it's the most recent release, yeah.
Yeah, and I know I sent you a few things, but I'm about maybe over a third of the way through.
Sure. Because
there's a lot of each poem I kind of want to like get through it and then get through it again and then like look at it and think about it and then get through it again, which I really I think is awesome.
I appreciate that.
So I guess starting out, why don't you just kind of tell me a little bit about yourself?
I'm Bryon Cherry. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Great city on a great lake, I like to say. I grew up kind of in like the central city, inner city of Milwaukee. With big family. I'm the oldest of 8 children.
Really?
Kind of started writing at a pretty early age, and that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Okay. What kind of got you started writing?
Well, my mother is a writer as well. So like, I think, just being at home, she was at home with us when I was young. So just kind of emulating what she was doing or trying to do. And, I'd always find like little scraps of paper where she had stuff written on it. So I guess I kind of started doing that.
Sure. So what was that? I suppose she probably had to be home with all those kids.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So what was that? What was that like?
It was always interesting. It's never a dull moment with all those children running around. And like I said, my mom was at home. My father worked a ton to enable us to be living and stuff like that. So I kind of got to see the best of both worlds. Got to see my mom's creativity kind of flourish, and then see my father's kind of hard work and perseverance that he has, and his job that he did every day.
Sure. What did he do?
He's a truck driver, actually. So
okay.
And it's funny, he's been in the same job since he was like 17 or something like that. So
wow.
Just he's a very hard worker, and that's something that I was raised around. So
nice. Okay. Did you have well, that's the one question I always like to ask people. So with all those kids, did you have a favorite meal when you were growing up?
I was thinking about that. Like, I think for me, it would have to go back to like macaroni and cheese or something like that. My mom gets special for like special occasions and stuff like that. Big family get-togethers. Actually, both of my parents' families moved to Wisconsin, to Milwaukee from the South, like when they were really young children in the 60s. So a lot of the Southern cooking stuff is kind of hits the spot with me.
Sure. What kind of memories does that bring up? Sorry.
I think it just brings up a lot of like togetherness, laughing, just warmth, I would say, is what it brings up, because it's connected to a lot of like different holidays that we might have had, and
sure.
Seeing the extended family and just everybody's just relaxing, having a good time, just kind of a loose atmosphere. So.
Mm-hmm. So did you have, a lot of aunts and uncles too?
Yeah, I have a pretty fair amount. It's a big family on both sides, pretty much. So
nice.
Yeah.
And is everybody kind of still in the area in Milwaukee?
Extended family is kind of scattered, but my immediate family is pretty much in the area still, in Milwaukee area, which is nice. I have one sister who is down in Nashville. She's a pediatrician down there, so
okay.
She kind of flew the coop, but she's
well, sure. Had to get back down to the South.
Right.
There you go. So on top of the writing, what are you up to these days?
Well, I'm a musician, so I do a lot of like songwriting, and when it's not a pandemic, playing music out for people and stuff like
sure.
that, which is something that is one of my passions. I also just took up like some visual art because I thought, maybe it'd be good to be bad at something, like really. Yeah. And I'm really bad at it. So it's a good time though. It's fun.
Yeah. What do you like doing?
I'm drawing. I'm getting into painting a little bit.
Okay.
Just very rudimentary stuff right now, but it's just something to do, and I think it opens my eyes up in a different way with the poetry and the music stuff too, because you're looking at the world in a different detailed way than sometimes you're looking at it when you're writing a song.
Sure. Do you feel like that's kind of opened up like new avenues of creativity for you?
I think so. I think I'm big on trying to do something creative every day.
Okay.
I think just having that avenue has opened me up, because it's when I do go back to writing, I feel like oh, I can key in on this little detail that I might have missed before, but it's something that was really important when I was trying to draw something. Because what I've been trying to do is just take a lot of pictures with my phone and just try and sketch those pictures. So just capturing a moment, which is what I want to do in essence with the poetry and stuff too.
Yeah. At least that's what it's when I was going through your latest book, that's kind of what it seemed like. Like you had a day and then you'd read about it.
Yep.
Or you just noticed one little thing and then you would just kind of expand on that a little bit. And I thought that was really obviously that's the idea, you have an idea, you have a certain concept and you just kind of express it in your own way. And you mentioned, so you do that and then you're a songwriter as well. I guess why don't you talk about the difference in those two forms of expression? Because I think, I was one, and I'm sure a lot of other people are too, that see it kind of as the same thing. But I'm sure it's not. What are kind of the differences that you see?
Yeah, it's funny. The first thing a lot of people ask me is like, how do they bleed into each other? And a lot of times they don't explicitly bleed into one another. Songwriting for me is something where I'm not the most technically advanced person playing a guitar, but when inspiration strikes, I just like to let it spill. And like a lot of times, my best songs are the ones that come out right away.
Sure.
With the poetry, it has aspects of that, but tends to be more of a refinement process to it. A lot of times I'll just write stuff on my notepad on my phone and like constantly just going back in and taking out a word here, what would fit better here. And I just think that the songwriting for me is more of like a lightning strike than the poetry is. The poetry, because of, I think, the way that I came to poetry, I think that I was able to kind of make my own distinct style. I didn't like go to school or anything for poetry or anything like that. So it just allows me to just sit back with it and live with it and see if it's really the best way to craft the words to get out whatever I'm trying to say. And sometimes, to tell you the truth, I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say. It just later on, it kind of comes back and I'm like, oh, that's what I was talking about. That's what I was, stumbling through at that time.
Sure. Do you have, I suppose, did you save everything from when you started? Like when you're younger, like do you have a bunch of books just like filled up?
No, I'm a big believer in, what's the Bob Dylan line, she's an artist, she don't look back, and like,
Sure.
I keep moving forward with a lot of stuff. And that's why having these books published last year was really helpful because it was something concrete where I could just say, okay, those poems are done. They're actually a thing, and now I can move on to other things, So I don't,
right.
I'll still find scraps here and there from like 10 years ago or something like that, but I don't have like a collection that I'm holding on to.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I get that too. Like once it's out, like, and you're done with it. And you're on the next thing.
Yeah, because I mean, in a way, you could work on something forever, one piece, the rest of your life, and never get it to a point where you're feeling like this is exactly what I want to present to the world. So at some point, you just have to let go. Like I think some of that is like the philosophy that I get into of like impermanence and we're only here for a short time, let it go and move on.
Yeah. So that kind of brings me to, well, the first book that I went through was Funeral Journey. Is that what that's kind of about? We're only here for a short time.
Yep, that's exactly. And that the title comes from a poem in the book, and I remember where I was exactly when that line came out. And I used to host this. It was like a curated poetry mic at this place called the Jazz Estate in Milwaukee. Great place. But it was poetry and jazz night. So there would be a pianist playing behind all the poets that I would pick to read. And so I was outside after that. It happened, and that line just came to me, about a funeral journey, and just got me thinking, like, yeah, we are all on a funeral journey, our own individual funeral journey, and what does that mean, like, to be aware of that fact? How does that change how you live on a day-to-day basis? So.
Yeah. Do you feel like, because I think we see people that probably don't think about that a whole lot, or
Sure.
kind of don't really want to think about it. But, what does that do for a person to just kind of really embrace that feeling?
Well, obviously there's a huge fear of death that permeates our culture and our society. But for me, like, I've always been one to think about death and think about what it means and what my place is in this kind of everlasting thing that's been happening. It's allowed me to be more free, actually. Whereas I think a lot of people think if they think about death, it's going to constrict them because the fear of it is going to just constrict everything that they're doing. But it's actually made me a lot more free because it's saying, I know that my time, and beyond that, I know that someday, just for an example, in 4.5 billion years or whatever, the sun is going to implode on itself and wipe out any existence that humans ever had. So really, nothing that we're doing matters in the way that we think it matters so much, So it's kind of freeing to say, now once you see that, you can really open up and live your life to do the things that bring you joy and help others find their joy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on the surface, people might think that that's like a depressing realization to get to, that there's no, maybe there's no inherent meaning, or the stuff, like you said, it doesn't matter the way we think it does. But I think the goal for everybody is to get to that realization as fast as possible, because you can just do whatever makes you happy, as long as you're not hurting somebody.
Exactly.
Start doing that now.
Yeah, you can do it immediately. Like, it changes
Mm-hmm.
everything. It's like the realization that this present moment is all that we have. The interaction between you and I right now is the results of so many different events happening in the span of history, time, and space. And here we are doing it, and it's what we should be focused on, is what's happening right now. And that's the beautiful thing is, even if you do, it's obviously you're not always going to be able to say, okay, I'm right in the present, I'm feeling good.
Right.
But you can always come back to that. And just, it's always there as kind of an anchor, So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, now, like, I get that when I just started interviewing people, is like the nerves of kind of, you and I, we've not spoken face to face before.
Yeah.
And while you're talking, trying not to think about, okay, how am I going to answer, or how am I going to ask them the next thing? That's tough. And I know if the roles were reversed, it would be the same thing, but flipped, because I would be thinking, like, how am I going to answer this question right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a dance, and I think the main thing, though, more so than even always being in the present moment, is being aware of that being your goal. That awareness is what allows you to step back and say, well, for instance, like, I recently, the past fall, got into meditation, and I always had tried to get into meditation for the longest. And I had heard something that somebody said to me, and they were like, it's not that you have to let all the thoughts drain from your mind when you're meditating. It's that you see the thoughts come, you're aware of them, and you just let them go where they go, and just say, you could even say, well, who's that's aware that thought is there? And then it's kind of like an onion that you're peeling back, how deep
Yeah.
you go, it's like,
That's the fun part of it, though, because you can keep going and tie yourself into a knot, and then
yeah,
okay, let's stop right
yeah,
there. That's probably enough for
yeah,
today.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. In the dance, so I wrote a note down when I was reading Funeral Journey too. Life is a praise dance.
Sure.
What does that mean? What do you think that
Ecstatic
means?
living. Like I think it's like, I I believe that, so depending on what you believe or whatever, if you believe in the Big Bang or you believe in God or some supernatural thing or whatever, um, to me it's all kind of pointing to the same thing, that everything that existed was in this one, in the case of the Big Bang, small point
Mhm.
that exploded into everything that we see now, or there was a supernatural being that had everything and created everything out of that. To me, it just seems like, you know, we're all one thing, kind of expressing ourselves in a lot of different ways. And it's a dance. It's a ecstatic dance to meet other people and try and put forth your best self to them and see the best in them, even when it's a difficult situation. Um, I think, you know, I've had a lot of jobs that I thought were crappy during the daytime,
Mhm.
and looking back on them, I can see that they've taught me a lot about interacting with people and seeing that there's things going on that I can't see, obviously.
Mhm.
So I've got to dance with them and present the best that I can to them, my best self, so that they can maybe present their best self, whatever that may be possible, whatever situation they may be in. But I think it's a praise dance, because this is it's kind of ludicrous that all this is even happening right now.
Yeah.
It's like yeah, we're all stardust. That's what, okay, and we just kind of walk around, not even thinking that we're on this rock that's spinning through space, and
Yeah.
orbiting around this fireball. It's so it's like, it's you have to take the blessings where they come from, and it's a blessing that any of this is even happening. So
Yeah, absolutely. Like you kind of mentioned earlier, like us sitting here talking, um, a million, billion events had to happen how they did,
mhm.
for us to be sitting here or for us to even exist,
Yeah.
how we are right now. And then sometimes we get, annoyed because we got a ketchup stain on our shirt. And
Right.
it's kind of, it's just insane to think
Yeah.
about, like that kind of stuff that maybe irritates us, rubs us the wrong way, about another person maybe, or about something in our lives, because we lose that context of like, this is just insane to begin with,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool. And that's another thing that can kind of, I think, like wrap your mind up when you really dig into that. And also just the fact that you, this other person sitting there, like you have this life that's as vivid to you as my life is to me, with
Right.
all these like fears, concerns, worries, hopes, and every single person you come across has that same thing,
Right.
which is kind of I love thinking about that.
Yeah. It's a fun challenge, man. It's like,
Mhm.
it's hard. It's not easy. It's never. And I think, what's the phrase? Um, Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. You're still going to go through the same things that you're going through. You just have a different perspective on, what's
Yeah.
happening. There's obviously just the way that life is constructed. There's ups and downs and downs and ups, and it's like curveball here, and it's like, uh, you can step back from all of that and say, this is still pretty amazing that any of this is going on, that we've developed a cognition that we can have this conversation right now. It's just incredible. So,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Um, The other thing that caught my eye, so I'm flipping over to Run's Ruminations and Rituals. Another thing that caught my eye was in Trip to Target.
Sure.
And that kind of makes me think about that too. Perhaps we're all just washing each other's feet and then rinsing off life's grime. Is that kind of, do you feel like that's kind of related to?
Yeah, because I think everyone we meet is going through some type of hurt, whether you can see it on them or it's just under the surface somewhere. Um, you know, I have a feeling that we're here to help each other through these things as best we can, and then be open enough and vulnerable enough to allow people to help us, when we need it. And I think that's where that line comes from, because it just it comes after an exchange, I believe, where like it's a banal thing that happens. Like I just see a shopping cart that's out in the parking lot left there, and I put it back, and it's a simple thing that helps somebody out that in a way that I don't know what that's going to do for them. So it's like you may not understand exactly how you're impacting others or the world, but you can try your best to do what you feel is the next right thing.
Mm-hmm. Did you see that? It was recently a quote that was, I think it was attributed to like Danzig, maybe, but
Mm-hmm.
the shopping cart as like the ultimate judge of character.
I did see that actually.
Yeah. Kind of made me think
And
of that.
it's kind of true. It's like, because it's like, it's that individual, it's where it comes down to, is like, you can have all these grand plans, but at the individual level is where it either breaks down or comes alive. I think that's what that was kind of trying to point out in a funny way, but I think who's like going to be the person that's like, I'm just leaving my shopping cart right here because this is going to be an inconvenience to somebody. Like, who makes that decision? What type of person makes that decision? Or you can look at it another way and say maybe they were in a rush, maybe there was something else that happened, they got a call that they have to run, and so I try not to judge people as much as I can, because I've known that I've been less than than great throughout my life at times. So
Right, right. I was thinking about that too. Like, who knows? That can kind of keep wrapping around each other. Like judging the person that doesn't put the cart back, but then you got to have empathy for that person too, because what happened? Who really knows?
yeah,
Yeah. Well, would you? I know I mentioned this, but would you be willing to read anything
sure,
for us today?
sure. Um, I will read. Well, this is kind of what we were talking about, so I'll read this one.
Okay, perfect.
Denouement. Um, Outside grocery store, I flick reciprocal receipt in the trash receptacle and flash in the past eating the present. That 1 inch by 3 inch document showing my debts have been exercised for fried chicken and black cherry soda, and it is a coda as it parts my hand. The paper it was printed on, its origins a plant with a woody stem, which could have grown to heights where limbs could have articulated at angles to and from the earth, that being, while it was alive, wasted oxygen, which was taken in by other organisms who went through their own life cycles. It was once a germ fed into ground and fed by ground. It occurs across my synapses that there would also be no receipt without Johannes Gutenberg and all of his ancestors and all of their joys and struggles. When the great arbitrator begins its shift on my life, it may and can't. Do not you feel when you were singularity and you first tasted yourself as the receipt?
Nice. So that is the receipt.
Mm-hmm.
Never thought about a receipt that much.
Yeah, it's funny. That's one of them that's like well, they're all kind of true stories in a way, but that's like an actual. I was at lunch at my day job and standing outside of Pick and Save, and after having lunch and threw my receipt away, and off that one just came out. So
there it is. Do you feel like in either do you feel like there's an overall theme of something you're trying to work through when you're writing these poems?
yeah, I think the overarching theme is taking a mundane moment and extrapolating out to the holy or the divine, whatever you want to call it, because in each thing, in each moment, I truly feel that there is something special happening. Recently, I've started writing some like nonfiction micro memoirs, I guess you would call them.
Okay.
And that's really about the same thing. It's just like taking little bits of your day and like elevating them to, stature of, wow, what can be gleaned from this? What can I learn from this moment? And sometimes in the poems, I'll notice that I'll write a poem, and then a few years later, a few months later, whatever, I'll return to that same moment, but with a different perspective on it. So that's something interesting that happens a lot with the poems.
Yeah, I feel like that has to be enlightening for you to do that with those little moments and like, what can I learn from this? What can I take from it?
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, I've always been kind of a seeker, just looking for something deeper in life, not exactly knowing where to find it. Like the Bob Dylan documentary, No Direction Home, that's like kind of, there's something there that you're meant to be at. You're not exactly sure how to get there or if it exists. So it helps me work through that cycle of trying to understand, why am I here? Is there such thing as a purpose being a human being? If there is a purpose, what is my purpose? If there is no purpose, what does that mean? And so like just kind of, working through all of that, that's kind of this, I would say that's the central narrative to a lot of the work.
Okay. Do you ever feel like I hit the point where I go through all of that and then like there's a little worry about like, am I focused too much on thinking about like, is there a purpose or like taking meaning from something, and then like going through that cycle, and then what if at the end of everything I look back and I forgot to actually just like be there and live because I've been thinking too much.
Yeah, and I think it's funny. I think like, so I have a new chapbook collection that I completed, and it's funny. I promised Scouts Honor. I completed this like back in September, and it got edited in October. But it's called Making Love in End Times, which now kind of seems like, is that too on the nose for what's going on now?
Right.
It has to do with that, but it just seems like. But I think that I do go back and forth. I think the new collection is kind of a reaction to these collections, because these two collections are, though they're different, with the Ruminations and Rituals having longer pieces, more prose poem oriented pieces in a lot of way. They're kind of like twin stars in a way, because a lot of poems I was writing around the same time for both of them. But this new one kind of reacts against that and bucks against a lot of that. It's just kind of in the moment in a lot of ways. And I think it's funny that you bring that up. I wouldn't have thought of that myself, but it's happened. So,
nice. What is the new one?
Making Love in End Times.
Making Love and Enzymes. Okay. Is that out yet?
No. I'm sending it out to places now. So
Okay. I'll have to look at that one too. So are you married
yes, I am.
and you have a kid?
Yep, 2 of them actually.
2? Okay.
Little boy and a little girl.
Little boy and little girl.
Yep.
So, and what's that been like? Kind of, you're working through and searching for meaning and kind of gleaning meaning out of moments in life, and then you have children.
Yeah.
How's it been? Kind of, do you see the world through their eyes a little bit, and does that kind of affect your view on meaning?
You do, and I think that so my son is 4, Miles, and my daughter Tessa is 1, and it's just really interesting to see like Miles will say the most unique things, and I'm like, wow, I gotta write that down. That's really I hope you don't mind if I steal that from you. And it's like, or seeing Tessa and you get down on the ground with her and you're crawling around with her and seeing the world from that level just changes your perspective on things, and it changed my life completely. Like it just like I can say like everything means nothing to me or whatever is like a statement, and it's like, but at the same time it's like there's this quote where a person he's talking about music, but it really applies to any art form or life in general. It's like you have to have 2 competing things in your mind. 1, that music doesn't mean anything at all, and 2, that it's the most important thing in the world. And that's kind of the clash that happens with my kids. They are without a doubt the most important thing in my waking life that I deal with. And it's even more pronounced now with the current situation because
Sure.
I've been off of my job and just been a full-time dad for the past 2 or 3 months now. So it's been really interesting to see them like all day and just get to soak in what they're thinking and what they're processing. And Miles told me a couple weeks back, he's like, we were getting ready for bed, and he said, "Dad," I was like, "Yeah." Like, I think I want to be a poetry man when I grow up. It's like, that's the kind of thing that if I had $10 million in the bank, wouldn't add up to that, because it's like, money besides just being a human construct can't compete with the fact that my son thinks a lot of what I do. It's something that it's hard to describe unless you're going through it. Do you have kids? Or?
No.
It's great. It's the best and the hardest thing I've ever done. I'll tell you that. It's not easy at all. It's completely worth it for transforming me into a better person. So
Yeah. I'm always interested to hear kind of how that affects someone's life and how it changes it. But I could imagine that, for him to say that, obviously he doesn't see it as like a hardship for you to try to do what you're doing. He sees it as like, this is really cool. Like, Dad seems to really love it.
Yeah, it's cool, and it's like, it's something that, this in the same way that I got to see my mom doing that. He's just seeing me do it, and it just seems like a natural thing that, I guess some people do this, like big deal. It's just, what some people do.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So how have how's the last month been? So you haven't been working, you've been kind of full-time home.
Yep. It's been like everything else I think in life. You can say it's been great and it's been really bad sometimes. Like, it's the truth, and I think I want to be vulnerable enough to be able to tell the truth about the situation, because I don't think that in our society, especially, we talk about how hard it is to have kids and the struggles that you can go through. But the gains that come out of it, though, is equal or above whatever pain or issues that come with it. Because I learned something from them every day, and now it's just ramped up because I'm with them. As long as they're awake, I'm with them, and it's amazing to And I understand that in a few years, which won't be too long from now, they're not going to want to hang out with me, but I'll have this time that I can go back to and say, I was with them and I fed them every meal, cleaned up after them. It's just good stuff, something that, I think the situation, as much as it's been a downer in a lot of ways, not seeing friends and family and stuff like that, it's helped clarify a lot of things for me as far as rank of importance of things in my life. And it's, family has just been even more so than it was, just pushed way up there. And then creativity, like, because I'm not the best person I can be if I'm not being creative. If I'm not being creative, people can tell. And so it's really added some definition to my life in a lot of ways that I wouldn't have expected at the beginning of it.
Yeah. Did you feel like it was a little more challenging to be creative right away, like with the change and everything, and like, I mean, do you feel like you have more time kind of pushed onto you for that kind of stuff?
Well, it's interesting. At the very beginning, I didn't have anything to give creatively. It was just like, because things were happening so quickly, and I was adjusting to being there all day with my kids. I was more tired than going to work, like at the end of the day, and it's like, but slowly within like the last month or so, like started to pick up to they take a nap at the same time, both of them. So I'll write then, or I'll draw then, or I'll do whatever, and I can stay up now because I'm not as tired, because I'm falling into kind of a rhythm, like everything else is like, with art too, you fall into a rhythm of, okay, I see the blank page here and that's kind of scary, but I'm used to that being scary, so let's just get past that and just fall into a rhythm with things. And I think in the past like month or so, that rhythm has kind of shown itself to me.
Yeah. I think it's been a struggle, I think, for some people to find that rhythm.
Yeah.
But like being empathetic and understanding that, so you can kind of notice that. So with my work, I'm still out doing stuff. But yeah, you notice a different like tone in people. It's a little more urgent.
Yeah.
But that's good to hear. Is there anything, have you kind of planned on anything coming up as far as getting out and getting back into clubs, reading places, or is that kind of on hold right now?
Yeah, it's all up in the air right now. Like, Milwaukee still has the stay for at home in place right now, so there are no clubs open in Milwaukee. A lot of people have been doing like virtual readings and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly sure how I feel about that, or like playing music live or whatever, going live on Facebook or Instagram. I don't know. I'm using this time to kind of refocus on just my daily writing practice, my daily playing music practice, and trying to draw something sometimes, something really bad. It's looks like nothing like I'm trying to draw, So I'm trying to just do that and go within more so than trying to. I feel like without the pressure, because there is a certain pressure to being out in the world and presenting your work. And I think without whatever that pressure is, whether I'm manufacturing that myself, I probably am. But without that, I feel like stuff is flowing more freely. I'm less judgmental about what I'm writing because we all have that editor in our head who's telling us, "What are you doing? This is you don't want to show this to anybody. You don't want to." So I'm not fighting with that guy as much as I had been. Um, so that's been good. But as soon as I'm a performer, that's kind of it's in my blood. So as soon as it's time, I'll be back there. So
Yeah, I can imagine like if you're used to playing out publicly, playing for, I know we're on a computer screen right now, but playing for a computer screen and not seeing faces out there and not seeing that's got to be weird, or it's got to change it up quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, this is more of like a actual conversation, but if you're playing live, you can see the comments, but it's like, just so, but I just feel like it's beneficial not to do that. See if I can make my motivation not be about getting something back from other people. If I can make my motivation be purely having fun, like when I was 5 or 6 or teenager or whatever, it's like that's super, super good for me, I think. So
yeah, absolutely.
Because that's one thing that I question a lot. Like I've made long diatribes on Facebook about why do I show anybody anything that I create? Like, am I in the is the essence of showing anybody anything that I create narcissism, or is it you putting you're giving their judgments more value than your value? Like, so that's something that I've wrestled with for a long time. Is why am I doing anything with my art? Like, do I need that outside notification that somebody else likes it or doesn't like it? What role does that play in me creating art, and why is that playing a role in it? So
yeah, and that can kind of be like the searching for meaning, and maybe there isn't meaning, and you can kind of roll up into that. But I hope, my only hope in some of that is, maybe it speaks to somebody. Maybe this is a thing, I loved and I made it. And if there's one person out there that it hits the right way and opens up a door for them in some way, shape, or form, then it's good. Then it was worth it.
Yeah, and that's generally what I come back to, is where that issue is that the reason I do this is because I've been touched by so much art in my life. Like, I mean, like, easily saved my life in a lot of ways, and if I can be a small, tiny link on that chain of, maybe potentially helping somebody or showing somebody that they can do this, it's like, that's what's exciting to me about it. I think, about sharing with other people, is that potential is out there, to reflect back what's been given to me from art in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm. You want to talk about how your life's been saved?
Yeah, so I've gone through like what would you call it, like a dark night of the soul, or you even call it felt like a period of enlightenment. But I was diagnosed with like bipolar disorder, and so like I was at the bottom rung of everything after having a manic thing, feeling that I was enlightened and had all the answers, but then it was crushing to realize that oh, now there's something wrong with me, and not feeling quite human enough. But what I turned to in what was like a deep, deep, dark night of the soul was art, and it saved me. Like it, it made me see that there were other people feeling the same thing, and I found out, lots of poets: Anne Sexton, Robert Lowell, Jimi Hendrix, Nina Simone. So many people have had this disorder. Kurt Cobain. It's just like it saved me. It was like a life preserver that when I was out in the middle of the sea, it was like a mooring to say, okay, look, we've been through this before. Hold on, look, this is what can happen. It's gonna be ups and downs, but everybody has that. Yours is just a little bit different. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So it like literally saved me because it was a dark point in my life.
Yeah. And we have, so on the, like, for what I've experienced with as far as like the recovery side, that's like meeting, it's like going to a meeting and hearing a story from somebody or hearing about someone's life and hearing, yeah, like, so you're not special in going through a certain thing because that person did it too, or they experienced it as well, and this is how they got out, and that can be a light to follow.
Yeah, and I've heard people say that everybody's kind of in recovery from something,
Yeah.
Whether they want to admit to it or not is the question. But no, I feel that was exactly what it was. It was like not feeling alone. It was because I didn't know anybody that had really ever gone through anything like that, and I was just spending time laying on my couch doing nothing. Like, but then I started researching and finding all these people and going into their work, and like it's like, wow, this is actually doable if I focus and just take what comes, and at the very bottom of it, be as honest as possible about it. And,
Yeah.
So
Be vulnerable and be honest.
Yeah, that's the main goal of any art that I'm doing is be vulnerable and be honest. Like there's no reason to try and have any pomp and circumstance about who I am or like what I'm trying to project, because I know like what art can do for people, and I know that it sounds silly, but like people have come up to me and said like, watching you perform has made me feel like I might be able to do something like that. And it's like, well, there's that one person right there. Like that's more than anybody can ever hope for in their life, is to just help one person turn any corner that they may be struggling with. It's like, that's, a miraculous blessing, basically.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this whole crazy thing that it's a miracle that we're even here.
Yeah.
And that one person happened to be there.
Yeah, he happened to, it's like you can't calculate any of this stuff that's going on. The best that I can do for myself is kind of hang on for the ride and like know that, because I think a lot of people are dealing with issues of believing that comfort and stability was always going to be a given in their life.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily going to be the truth for any human being. That's just not the way that life works. And I think that this pandemic that we're going through now is kind of highlighting that for a lot of people. For me, I feel like I've worked through a lot of this internal stuff, like with what I went through, and it hasn't been as hard on me as I think it has been on some people. It's been hard in different ways, maybe, but internally, I feel good about who I am and what I represent and what I'm trying to represent to the world.
I feel good about who you are too.
Oh, thanks, man. I feel good about who you are.
Yeah, nice. Well, before I let you go, I mean, is there any ending message that you have for us?
Yeah, so you can find, I have a website, which is just bryoncherry.com, BRYAN Cherry, CHERRY, .com. So, funny story, for the band stuff, I had to change it to an A instead of an O in my first name because people were calling me Byron Cherry. They would just transpose the letters a little bit.
Yeah.
So my website is with an A, but if you do /poetry, bryoncherry.com/poetry, you can find my books. They're also at Woodland Pattern. You can also find them through the presses, who I am more than grateful that they would even do this. Kelly Sexton's press, the Quell Press out of La Crosse, Wisconsin, and the Ruins, Ruminations, and Rituals, which is on Anarcho Welfare Press out of Madison with the great Jesse Kearns at the helm.
Perfect. Well, Bryon, I'll admit I did do the Byron thing first. I did do
Everybody
that once.
does.
I'm like, why am I saying that?
Everybody does.
Bryon, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate you being on the show. And I wish you all the best. I look forward to getting through the rest of Ruins, and
Yeah.
I look forward to your upcoming work.
Oh, thanks a lot, man. Matt, it was a pleasure to meet you. You're a sweet guy, man.
Oh, stop it. You have a great night.
You too. Take care.
Yeah. Bye now.